Welcome to the Stephen Sayoun podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, Steve?
Mate, thank you for jumping on and giving up your time to jump on the podcast. I'm excited to have you on. You're the first UFC fight I've had on my podcast, and
Nice.
it's been a pleasure working with you over the last couple of, or actually the last couple of months, and getting to know you has been fantastic. So I really wanted to get in and have this platform to find out obviously more about your background for the audience. We have a lot of fans here in Australia who look up to you as a fighter, and I'm sure that they're going to get a lot of value out of this episode. And any young and up and coming fighter can, pretty much kind of find out more about your background and your story, how you got into fighting. And we're going to delve into some of these questions shortly. So what we've got, well, one of the questions which I think is a great question that we got asked that I put up on the stories on the question boxes was, how did you get into MMA? So what was your kind of motivation to get into the sport?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have I guess it's unique just because it's uniquely boring, but I don't have like a very good story of what interested me in MMA. I always grew up like I was always like an outside kid. Like I enjoyed going outside, playing all of the sports that me and the neighborhood kids would play. I grew up in the suburbs, so like there was plenty of neighbors and we would just ride our bike around. It was like a safe area. So I was outside pretty much at all hours of the day. So I just kind of naturally became more or less like a sports kid that found that that's what I enjoyed doing is, doing athletic stuff. My family, I have a little sister too. So my family was very big in basketball. Like we were both really competitive basketball players, or like as competitive as you could, I guess, could kind of be here in Colorado, which isn't the most competitive basketball state that we have in the US. But I started doing that. And then, basketball in high school just got really old for me and I didn't really enjoy it that much anymore. I asked if I could wrestle and my mom told me that I wasn't allowed to wrestle because we were pretty much just a basketball family and the seasons were at the same time. So she didn't let me wrestle. She also didn't like the idea of me wearing a singlet in front of people. Uh, like she
I
was
can
just,
relate to that.
oh man, yeah, I don't know when they're gonna get rid of those
Oh
singlets in
man,
sport,
that's
but
what stopped me from doing a comp was a fucking singlet.
yeah, I was like, man, I mean, that's more or less why I feel like it didn't interest me at all. But then when I started getting a little bit interested in MMA, I was like, I should learn how to wrestle. And then I was like, but I gotta wear a singlet, and I'm not wearing a
Yeah,
singlet. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, because yeah, high school boys should not be wearing singlets. Something's wrong with
No.
that. But yeah, so I asked her if I could do that. She said no. So I was like, whatever. I'll sign up at a MMA gym here in Colorado. I just got really lucky because uh, a really good gym. The guy's name was Nate Marquardt. He was a little bit of like maybe like a generation or two generations ago, like really big name in MMA. So
Mhm.
Nate Marquardt had his gym in Aurora, which is where I'm from. And it was like 10, 15 minutes from me. I just got really lucky and signed up there. I didn't really know too much about MMA other than the fact that I liked what it looked like on TV. I feel like every combat person that I ever watched on TV, whether it be boxing, wrestling, any of, like any combat sport, I feel like it was shorter, jacked guys that, could fight. And when I was watching MMA, the first people that I got into was watching the WEC with, people that didn't have the physique of like a god, like I remember like Dominic Cruz, Donald Cerrone,
Mhm.
um, Faber and Aldo, they kind of were a little bit built, but I remember just watching the sport and just being super fascinated with the idea of jiu-jitsu too. Like I thought that that was just like I had never seen a submission before, and I thought that that was just like a fascinating part. So I kind of just watched it on TV, was like a athletically inclined kid with probably some anger stuff going on at the time, and I thought that uh, learning how to fight would be cool. And also, like when you're 17, 16 years old and you can like kick your friends' asses, like that's like a big, ego boost. So I was never bullied or anything like that. So I don't really have that
Yeah.
story. like
Yeah,
people, but who doesn't want to know that they can beat the shit out of anyone that they're really around. And so I was like a really tiny kid, so that kind of like helped me too. Like I didn't get tall or big at all until maybe my junior or senior year in high school. So yeah, I don't really have the coolest story in the world other than the fact that I just signed up at a really good gym and had really good coaches right off the break. And I think that that took me a really, really long way in the sport.
that's awesome. So your first introduction to combat sports was actually full blown MMA. It wasn't one particular art. It wasn't like I started boxing as a kid and then I transitioned into wrestling and then I moved into MMA. It was you went to an MMA gym and you just started with mixed martial arts.
Yes, I guess that's a little bit unique. Like it's a
Mm,
little bit less unique now, but when I was first getting started, in my professional career 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it was now, or shit, actually longer than that, but whenever I first started getting involved in my professional career, that was like a very unusual thing. Most people came from other types of backgrounds, but really no one forced me to do MMA. My parents didn't like that I was doing MMA.
mm-hmm.
It was all just by choice, and I think that that also caused, me to excel really far too because I just loved it on my own. No one was looking over my shoulder and trying to make me good. Like I just loved this thing by itself for my own self, and I think that that took me a really, really long way in the sport too.
That's awesome, man.
Yep.
That's awesome. Like, and it's good that you pointed it out. Everyone thinks that you need to have some sort of like sob story to, that most fighters come from broken homes and were bullied in school and that's why they've transitioned into MMA. The fact that you just actually love the sport and you just since working with you, I can see like there's a difference from working with other fighters and then when I'm working with you, you just genuinely love to fight. I feel like I get that for me it's more like I'm shit scared to step in there with 4 ounce gloves on and but I see it in your eyes and the way that you speak about it when we've worked together. You can just like you kind of really you're a born fighter in that sense, and I think that um, when you have that natural quality, I think that you can be quite dangerous and go very far in the sport which you have, and I think that that's something that is unique in itself, where you weren't bullied, you weren't didn't grow up in like a rough neighborhood where you had to fend for yourself, like you hear with all these stories, but you just genuinely have that natural love for the sport and like to fight.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that I won't go as far as to say that I didn't have that I had like a perfect upbringing,
I
like I had like I had a plenty fair share of, my own issues growing up, amongst, my family and things like that. Um I grew up across the street from the hood, not in the hood, but like we all went to the same high school, so I had like plenty of friends that I considered really tough, and those were the kids that I liked to hang out with. So I definitely was like I don't know that I would label myself looking back as like an angry kid, but I would definitely, like there was something going on that made me very aggressive. And I think that that's what kind of made me really interested in fighting, along with being smaller and feeling like I couldn't do it against bigger guys. And then also to speak on your point, just on why I've kind of been able to make it so far also. I also think that I'm very technically inclined. Like I think that just being a smaller basketball playing kid growing up, you have to be good at the details and the technical pieces of the sport. You don't just get to be like a giant athlete who can just jump higher than people and do all of that. So I think that I also was very technically inclined. I think that there's a big giant piece of me inside me that enjoys making an art or making a performance.
Mm,
And I don't see fighting as much about fighting as much as I think it's about a skill performance, because when you get to the top there, you have to fight in some circumstances, but really the things that you need to rely on are having good skills and being technically good and knowing more shit, because this is the most technical sport in the entire world. Like there's more to know in this sport as an individual than there
Hmm.
are other sports, like when I think of American football, it's like you have a position. Soccer, your guys is football, you guys have a position. Baseball, there's positions. But in this
Mm,
sport, you have to be everything. You have to be the quarterback, the wide receiver, the running back, the coach. Like you have to be a lot of things in this sport. Um, yeah. So I think that I'm just like I'm very detail oriented, and that has gone a really long way for me too.
definitely, and I see that with your approach to strength and conditioning. You're very consistent. You pay attention to detail, and you get great results from that mindset. And that's something that you either have it or you don't. And that's something that I see on a regular basis working with athletes as well, to get people to buy into the process. Now, with your you made a very good point back there, that I'm trying to just remember and retouch on. Um, with your When you talk about the finer details and you talk about the arts and you talk about the sports, I think MMA being an individual sport, you are required to take on a lot of responsibility on your own, especially even at the highest level from what I've seen. And I'm not here to badmouth or talk bad about anyone else, or that's what not this platform's is. That's not what it's about. Um, when I first started working with you, and I had a look at currently where you were and your previous training experiences, I personally was quite surprised to see that there was a lack of care in
Mm.
my eyes. I felt like there was a lack of care, a lack of attention to detail to your specific needs, and I think that a lot of fighters are kind of in a similar boat where they would have they're expected to. You think that everyone's got it all mapped out and it's all perfect at that level, but I actually don't think it is. And I think that fighters have to outsource and really see value and value in particular things that they need, and they need to go on a journey to find the right person to help them also get to where they want to go with their training. Most team sports, they have bigger budgets and they're well looked after in that sense. When it comes to mixed martial arts, probably the most dangerous sport in the world, um, one of the most dangerous sports in the world. It's quite sad to see that you don't actually have that support that you should be having at that level.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like yeah, because like you said, I mean, money's like a big deal, in being able to give yourself resources. And I would say that I just got really lucky in a lot of ways of being able to have people that gave me a lot of things. Because in sport in MMA, you don't have a lot of money until you make it to a big promotion, and then even then you have to make it a little bit further than just, being a part of a big promotion in order to make money that's actually going to change your life significantly, like for your life. Um, and yeah, you don't really get that in MMA right off the bat. It takes years and years and years. And, like, I feel really fortunate that I've gotten everything that I've ever gotten. Like, I've had a ton of help all the way to where I am. And I attribute a lot of my success also to that. And also, like it does take, to touch on your point, it does take a really long time sometimes to bump elbows with the right people, and that's kind of, like I have nothing to attribute a lot of that stuff to other than just luck and just being surrounded by people that really care about me. Like Meg, the person that really suggested me that I use you, was like, I just know that Meg really cares about me, and she just wanted me to work with someone that, she thought was going to fill a lot of the holes that I was getting. And yeah, man, like I'm not like a smart guy, but people must just like me a lot, I don't even think I'm that much of an entertaining guy, but people do like helping me a lot. So yeah, I don't know, like that always makes me feel really grateful for just where I am.
It's probably because you're a good person and you're not a dickhead on camera. Like, and it's not
Uh,
hard to be. You know what I mean? It's you're a guy who's switched on, and he's you're a respectful person, and you're a likable person. I guess that's why people want to actually
Mm.
help you in that sense. And you've got a unique style, right?
Yeah,
The
I
way the
go
way
ahead.
that the way that you fight brings people want to watch it, and watching you move and the way you switch stances and how elegant you are on the feet, we're only going to enhance that in the gym as well. So it's really, I think that that plays a big part. Like, it's very exciting to watch. Like, if you were someone who was just coasting, you were just someone who just wanted to win on points all the time, it wouldn't really bring in a big crowd. And we see it, right? I'm not going to name names. It's sad. It's slack. Like, people that are at the top of their game but are still getting slammed. Not really. UFC really doesn't like him, but I
Mm.
guess they're probably dickheads. Two, that they don't carry themselves well, and three, they may not have a fighting style that's appealing to the masses.
Yeah, I think yeah, MMA is an interesting sport, man. Like I guess if I could offer any bit of, advice to people that are coming up, I would say put all your eggs in the basket of being really good at actual fighting and have that be the boat that you take to your horizon of success. Like don't let it be like, oh, I need to compensate my personality and be a shit talker or be, like a provocative person on interviews or be charismatic in a way that I'm really not in order to try to propel some type of career that you're trying to make for yourself that's going to end up in some type of dead end because you weren't able to acquire the skills that got you to the point that you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm really big on just long vision game, man. And I think that like in 10 years, I always like kind of think of this, but in 10 years a lot of these guys could be in really high situations, like they could like who knows what type of businesses they'll have, all of this, all of that. And the fact that like I'm not going to be rude to these people that I could potentially be partners with in the future. And I think that like I could certainly see myself as someone that could help a lot of people in the future with whatever I'm doing. And I know that all of these dickheads that act like assholes online or in the division or just in general and are kind of putting, in my opinion, a little bit of a bad stamp on the sport of MMA, like I'm not going to help those people, and I think that I want to be a guy that people want to help. And it's all just like long vision game, man, because I think that a lot of people, especially in this sport, just want results very, very quickly. And it's not about that, man. Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
think really long term in order to like really, really set yourself up, which is what I'm way more interested in than, you know, being a shit
Yep.
talking idiot.
Wise words. I guess any young MMA fighter who's listening to this and has aspirations to fight in the UFC should write that down. That's
Yeah,
an
don't be an
important
asshole.
one.
You
That's a good one.
don't have to.
So
You don't have to.
yeah, or you
Yeah.
can still be an asshole. Well, you can't fake it till you make it. You got to just be you. And it's the same in my industry. Like, you will see coaches recite information and put on a bit of a performance in order to gain business, a bit of clickbait stuff. But then when the dust settles and you can't sustain that kind of fakeness, you just get kind of phased out of the industry. Um, I just wanted to go back to Meg. So, just so everyone knows who Meg is a fantastic lady who's very smart. And uh, Meg put Corey into contact with myself. She looks after Corey's passive treatment, and she's been doing a lot of stuff with his biomechanics in the background. And Meg reached out to me, and we had a conversation. First conversation we had went for 2 hours, and
It did. I didn't know that. That's fun.
yeah, and we were talking about just concepts about movement models, compression expansion model. We were looking at we had a long conversation about just your resting posture, the way you move, and because we're both fascinated about those things, and we know that it is a missing link within the combat sports S&C scene. We just clicked and we hit it off straight away. And Meg's a great lady because she actually cares and she wants to see you perform well. And I think having someone like that in your corner is very important. Even at your level, every little bit counts. And I think that, it's very rare to find a therapist who provides passive treatment, who's so fascinated about movement and getting results that she would actually point you in my direction, which is it's been great. And it's kind of led me to this next question that one of the clients, sorry, not clients, one of the followers has asked. His name's Black Mountain Athletic. Um, what made you hire an S&C coach, and what has been your biggest improvement since starting S&C?
Yeah, so I started working with, again, this is like way, way long time ago, like back when Nate Marquardt, I might bring up a few times because Nate was kind of like the face of MMA here in Colorado for a really long time. But Nate got hooked up with Lauren Lando
Hmm.
like years ago. And Lauren Lando is a well-respected strength and conditioning coach out here. So I got hooked up with Lando maybe when I was about like maybe 11 or 12 years ago. And then switched over to working with you recently. And then also to touch back on the point with Meg, Meg is really big on the biomechanics because she's very nerdy in the way that she talks about stuff the same way that you are, which is like, in my opinion, a really good sign of like, because everyone can kind of regurgitate informational knowledge, but I don't think a lot of people have experience with the information that they're trying to communicate to people. And then, at least for me, I can very clearly tell when that's occurring and when it's not occurring. So Meg was very adamant about me, and it was also, my own decision too, but she was just pointing me in the direction of maybe taking biomechanics a little bit more seriously. And then, she found you and thought that it would be a really good fit because you do combat sports stuff. And actually, I was just on the phone with her earlier because my dumb ass thought that I had an appointment today and I didn't have an appointment today.
Oh
It's
no.
like next week. But I ended up talking to her anyways. And then she was just, she was like, "How are things going?" And I was like, "They're great. Like, I feel agile. My feet feel like they're connecting to the floor a lot better. I don't get as twisted up anymore, which is one big thing with strength and conditioning that always kind of nagged me a little bit is I would always feel like if I did go really hard in the weight room that it wasn't that I was getting sore, it was that I was getting a little bit twisted up, in the way that like my posture was or one side of my body or whatever. I'm sure that you know more about that than I do, but um yeah, like I said, sometimes, different parts of your life are for different things. And I think I'm 31 going on 32, and I need to very much be taking like the biomechanic, making sure that this thing isn't getting hurt, but also still being strong
Hmm.
very seriously. And yeah, so yeah, you've been a giant help, man. Honestly, like a big, big giant help.
Thanks, mate. We're just getting started, so
Yeah.
I hope to get out to Colorado very soon to work with you in person, which is going to be really exciting. Once we get some hands-on work together, I'll be able to
Yep.
see things in person, which will be so much easier to fix and address. But not just that, we're not using a fragile approach with your training. We are training you hard, but
Hmm.
we're just stimulating areas of need that are needed, and we're trying to use or trying to enhance multiple physical qualities within the session, working on specific needs from a biomechanical standpoint. And the way that we do that is we obviously choose exercises that kind of kill two birds with one stone, that fit in with your current capabilities, but also work on the restoring what is lacking from a relative range of motion perspective.
Nice.
um, so that's been, it's been good, man. And I'm glad that you're seeing positive transfer to your sport. Once we start delving and getting past this elbow issue, which was my next question, a lot of people don't know that you ruptured your tricep tendon and you had an elbow scope, and that's something that we've been working through at the moment now. So just to let everyone know, when did the injury actually occur, and how has your recovery been since then?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. When did I mean, the injury happened in the first round, like in the first 2 minutes of the fight, which sucked. Um, I have like a whole explanation of that I feel like I almost sound like I'm making excuses now when I bring it up, but pretty much, long story short, I was on antibiotics for about 3 weeks leading up to that fight, And to my understanding now, antibiotics really break down the tendons and all kinds of things in your body and just screw up multiple systems. So I went into that fight on a lot of antibiotics because the first round didn't work. The antibiotics were for previous like elbow bursitis infection, cellulitis that I got in the elbow. It all cleared up. I was able to fight. I really, really wanted to fight. It was like a main event. No one likes pulling out of main events. And also, it was supposed to be a number one contender fight, which I wasn't going to pass up either. So I was like, whatever, like this thing, I'll just get whatever surgeries I need on it afterwards. So I go into the fight, first round. I don't really know what happened because I never really feel anything in a fight, or at least in the beginning, just because there's so much adrenaline. So after the first scramble, whatever it was, looking back, I think maybe he had a Kimura, but it wasn't like ripping my shoulder. Maybe it tweaked something in the elbow. I don't know. But first grappling exchange ends. We both stand up. I go to throw my right hand and it feels like really off. Um, I go to throw it again and I'm like, yep, that thing is kind of fucked up. And then at that point, I was like, well, dude, you still have 4 more rounds to fight. Don't fuck this thing up anymore. So that's kind of what turned into the fight looking the way that it did, is because I was like, man, I'm not going to stand and bang with Rob Font with one arm when he could potentially hit it or try to take me down and I post on it and then I dislocate my elbow, because I've dislocated my elbows a few times. And it
Mm,
was just like in the back of my head, I was just like, man, just don't let this thing get any more hurt. Just like score this win, move on. I go back afterwards and it hurts like hell. Like immediately once you get to the back of, and the doc is checking you out, you start to feel all of the things that happened in the
mm,
fight. So I was like, man, this thing's fucked up. And the doctor was like, well, like, can you flex your tricep? And I tried to flex it and he was like, I think your tricep's torn. And I was like, all right, I'll get an MRI. Got an MRI the next day. That's what they told me. It was torn at the elbow. So I got that surgery pretty quickly afterwards. They anchored it down, and then about 8 weeks after that, I had to get the elbow scope, because the elbow scope is what was kind of causing the bursitis that got infected anyways. So yeah, just kind of like, I guess, just like a whole shit show of things that could have gone wrong kind of went
mm.
wrong. And yeah, so that's where we are. But I'm able to train now pretty good. I still have to baby it some, but I'm really, like, I'm not going to be back in February. Like I know a lot of people saw online against Umar or whatever. I don't even think Umar is going to be back in February either, with his surgery. So no, I'm still planning on fighting for the title next. I don't think that that's too hard of a sell. I don't really know who else they would have. There's a couple other names, but I don't know how crazy they are about those names. And I do know that me and O'Malley's fight is certainly one of the most interesting and entertaining fights that the bantamweight division can offer. So, that's what I'm hoping for. But I'll be
Yeah,
bumping elbows with him here probably in the next few weeks. So maybe I'll know then.
definitely. Well, that just answered one of the questions that I had. So yeah, someone asked, "Are you fighting Umar next?" So I guess that's off the cards. And I don't think you personally, just with the injury and that, February is a bit too soon.
Yeah, what did you think when you saw that? You were like, "What the fuck
Nah,
is going?"
there's no fucking way in February, no chance.
Yeah,
So how far are you post surgery tricep tendon now?
I think 4.5 months almost.
No, we've still got another 4 months at least to go.
Yeah,
Um, just to the thing is though, it's like people don't understand that like when you when you're injured and you're out of the game and you can't spar, to get that timing back, to get the strength back, to get the athleticism back, that's kind of you've lost from being inactive and being injured and stuff. I think you're better off being more patient and just waiting those extra couple of months so you
mhm,
can really be physically well prepared, and really give it a good nudge. Especially, it's not like you're going in against someone who's you know ranked fifth. You're going against someone who's in their prime, at the top of their game, and you've been inactive and injured. That's kind of like where you need to be smart right there, because someone who's perfectly healthy, in their prime, in their peak, you're in your prime, you're in your peak right now as well, but you've just come back from surgery. I think it's a smarter approach to be a little bit more patient, really get in, get the groundwork done, really build up those underlying physical qualities, and turn you into a fucking beast so you can maul these cunts when sorry, excuse my language, when you're in there, right? So um, yeah, I get really excited when even though I'm a strength and conditioning coach, when I see my fighters go out, it's almost like I'm fighting in there too. In a way, I feel that the nerves and the excitement, and then if they get beat up on, I'm like fucking raging on the sideline. But I used to watch a mate of mine. He was a professional MMA fighter, only in the Australian level, not like in professional UFC or anything like that. But I remember just watching him fight and just the nerves and the excitement, and you'd have the other team yelling at the other team, and it would just be pretty crazy out there.
Yeah, it's an intense experience. It's more intense watching one of my like real close friends fight than it is me fighting. Maybe not, but it's very close. It's very close.
Yeah, it can get heated, definitely. So another question that I wanted to ask. This is some of these questions like are not the greatest, so I'm going to
That's
uh,
okay.
try and choose some good ones. Um, how does Corey select his walkout song?
Oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good question. I don't know, man. I just throw paint at the wall, honestly. So in the past, I used to just walk out to the same song every time, and then I was like, I don't really want to walk out to the same song every time. And now I kind of just do whatever it is that I'm feeling. But also, after being at enough UFC events, you start to realize that a lot of the walkout song is just for the fans anyways. So,
Pretty much.
choosing something that I feel like they would like is something that they like and I like a little bit is something that I tried to do, but nah, I don't really need that anymore. I feel like it doesn't really pump me up or do anything for me. So I kind of just try to choose songs for the fans or something that means something to me.
Yeah, okay. That's a good way to put it, man. Like, yeah, the fact that you're doing it for the fans. For me, I'd probably have to get into the zone and play something that would kind of G me up a bit. But that's really good. Knowing that you're just putting it on for the fans. So hopefully that answers. I don't even know this guy's name, but hopefully that answers. I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Hopefully that answers your question. Another guy asked, well, I don't know his name either. I don't know how to say it. Some weird names. What are some of your best ways to increase focus for a fight?
So I'm really big on. Okay, so I used to be really confused about where to put my attention before a fight because you get some guys being like, "Yeah, man, be present," and then you get other guys like, "Hey, focus on everything that you need to be doing right now, or focus on what it is that you're going to be doing in the fight when you're in the back." And then other people, suggest like grounding techniques and all kinds of stuff. Other people suggest like positive affirmations. And honestly, it changes fight by fight for whatever reason. But I will say that my biggest focus is putting my focus on staying focused. And I guess what that means is I'm not really focused on being present. I'm not very focused on, how it is exactly that I'm feeling. I'm not very focused on even, much of like the whole entertainment piece leading up to the fight. I just have certain things that I know that I've been practicing very hard on, and I know what type of mentality I kind of need to put myself into in order to fight really well. And I just try to focus on making sure that my body is warmed up, that I've gone over the strategy again in my head and the techniques that are involved in that strategy, and then just put like a really big focus on staying focused on those things and not the other stuff, not what happens afterwards, not really how I'm feeling right now as far as nerves go and all of that stuff. I don't give those things a lot of attention. All of my attention and focus is just on what it is that I'm about to go do, and am I warmed up enough to go do that thing?
Definitely. And do you think a lot of your confidence comes from preparation in the lead up
Uh,
to it?
yeah, I have some pretty gnarly and they're not really rituals, but I guess when I set up a fight camp, that's what my entire existence becomes about is doing every single thing that's going to make sure that on that day in the future I'm peaked to the most perfect place that I can be. So I do put a pretty big emphasis on not only, like training hard, doing strength and conditioning, all of like the physical pieces and even the recovery pieces that are involved in, being a really good athlete. But I put a massive amount of importance on my own well-being, my own like mind being rested so that it's not frantic or it's not nervous or it's not whatever. Like I try to be as zened out as possible through a fight camp, through fight week, through fight day. And that doesn't mean that I'm like Mr. Peaceful guy. It just means that I am very centered and level headed in, whatever brain waves are happening up there. I try to do as many things as I can to make that a thing.
Definitely. And I have actually, I really like that side about you, where I've seen on your stories, you'll go out to the woods, and you'll get out into nature. You eat some good quality meat. You'll just recharge, get off social media, and really decompress the mind. Is that something that you do during fight camp as well?
Yeah, I do that. I do that like big time in fight camp. Almost like not most important, of course, but very high up there. It's like it's a part of my existence at that point is making sure that my mind is rested enough so that I can focus a lot on fighting. And what that means is, freeing it up sometimes. Sometimes I need to go like do an ice bath in the mountains instead of doing it at the recovery center, or I need to, just go on a walk in the park and see some open grass because I
Mm.
don't really think that people realize how fucked up our brains have kind of become with just the level of stimulation that we get throughout the day. It's like really really overwhelming, and we have plenty of beautiful nature just right here in our backyard in Colorado. So like I feel the what it does to my body, like a hippie would call it energetically, what it does to my body or whatever. I don't know what it is that it does to me, but just being out away from all of that stuff does something to me that makes me feel like I can, handle life a lot better and handle my like really fucking hard job a lot better.
That's a great piece of advice because I need to start doing that more. I'm pretty guilty myself with that. Running an online business, um, there's so much stimulation, and unfortunately, I'm glued to my telephone, and
Mm,
it does have an impact on my family, my relationship with my son, and part of the reason why we relocated from Sydney to somewhere we were slower paced with a better environment,
mm,
better weather, better food, was to kind of balance all this out. And I totally agree with what you're saying. We're so disconnected from nature in that sense, and we're so glued to this, you know, artificial stimulation that is
mm.
not real, that is shaping people's lives. So that's important. And I think that a lot of fighters could, if anything, out of what we've just spoken about, that's probably the one of the most important things you could take away from this episode is exactly what you just said about getting away from for just being present, sitting in nature and sitting with your thoughts as opposed to being flooded by this dopamine hit from all this overstimulation that we're receiving from social media outlets and things like that. And I'm guilty for that. I put my hand up first. I'm one of those people that need to set boundaries in place, or I will just go down into deep, dark rabbit holes of just going down the scroll train. And
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you go. That's good. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, I would also say, like a little bit goes a really long way nowadays, especially because our brains are wired, I think, a lot differently personally than they were 15 years ago, even. So I would say even a little bit goes a really, really long way as far as like just going on a drive through whatever pretty areas you have or going on a walk through a park or whatever. Like, I'm always surprised. I'm just like, holy shit. Like, I just walked, 20, 30 minutes up the road and just like, sat on the bench at the park and just stared off, into the distance for like 10 minutes. And I came back and I feel completely rejuvenated. So
Hmm.
it's not something that has to be like you have to live like on a farm in order to be at peace. I think that every once in a while we just need time to, fill our gas tanks back up by just letting this thing like rest. And honestly, it makes it so that you can run this thing a little bit harder. So, you know, you're accomplishing more by doing that than by not doing that.
Definitely. I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you a question personally. This is my question. How was your how was your experience with Joe Rogan on his podcast?
Oh yeah, Rogan's awesome, man. Like, I mean, I respect the guy immensely. Like, I listen to his podcast a lot. I like the people that he has on. I like the message that he passes on.
Hmm.
You know, when I met him, it's like you know, it's a pretty quick interaction. Like, hey man, like your fight was awesome, thank you. Like, oh man, thank you, I love your show. And then we go into the studio and we do the podcast. But he's a very nice guy. Like, he texted me after the font fight, you know, and even was like, hey man, like you know, like you did great, like forget what all of these people are saying, because that was the fight that I've definitely received the most criticism on. And I was like, yeah,
Mm,
thanks man, I appreciate that message. Like, didn't know how to navigate the injury very well, but I mean, it was really kind of him to reach out like that. I also really respect Joe because I don't think that he tries to talk about things that he doesn't know a lot about. And instead, he gets people in the studio to talk about things. I think that that's a very rare personality trait to have nowadays.
that's what makes him
So,
so great.
yeah, it does. It makes him awesome. And I also think that it's really cool that you could tell that he definitely has an eye for martial arts too. Like when
Mm,
he gives analysis and when he gives, you know, feedback, whether to me or, you know, when I hear him talk about it with other people, you can definitely tell that it isn't just some Joe Schmo guy. It's like a guy that knows things, but also has a very keen eye for what it is that he's saying, which I don't think you can say the same thing for, you know, a decent amount of the people that are supposed to be the people that are talking about this sport in a way that is in that way.
we won't mention those people. So I think Joe Rogan should run for president, in my
I
opinion.
was thinking about
I man, he's one of the most likable guys out there, and every time I hear him commentating, and he gives out advice on, or he'll say something about any fight critiquing or anything like that. It's pretty much like what I was thinking in my head, and he's just saying it out, and it's just like the guy's very respected in the actual fight industry and just as a human in whole. He's a very likable guy, and it would have been an amazing experience to sit there on the podcast. And the fact that he messages you after that fight just shows that he cares. He just really likes you as a person and really cares. And the thing that I like asking the next question now would be like, you struggled in that Rob Font fight. No one knew you had a tricep tendon tear that you're dealing with. And mate, to fight a fight with a fucking ruptured tricep tendon would be horrible. The
it.
pain would be, you'd be running on adrenaline the whole time. It'd be fucking horrible. Um, and your way of dealing, like it would be hard for you to deal with, people giving you flack about that fight and just going, fuck man, what was that? That would be that shit. How does that feel? How did that like kind of feel for you from a mental side of things, knowing that, man, I just fucking fought like one of the hardest fights of my life with a torn tricep tendon, and these people are throwing shade at me. How do you deal with that negativity, and how do you deal with those kind of scum out there?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because that was so me and Ryan Hall are really close buddies, and so we'll like joke, you know, and the other like me and Ryan will talk about it or whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, man, I probably sound like just a whiny little bitch about how much criticism I got from people when you get like a ton of criticism for, you know, your fights like that, and me and Ryan kind of joke about that because Ryan just being a grappler by nature, people don't like it that much, you know, so we'll
Yeah.
kind of joke about that, but um having friends to talk through things with was nice, you know. Me and my own experience of it happening, it felt like I gave a lot and I didn't get a lot back because like I said, man, like my elbow was trashed leading into that fight. Not trashed to the point where I didn't think that, you know, I would tear it or have anything like that happen, but it was a struggle to be on that much antibiotics leading up to a fight. Like that sucked. And then having
Especially
to
with the
fight.
weight cut. Sorry to cut you off, but just people like you're cutting. I don't know. What you you're. I think you cut. What was it? 7 or 8 kilos.
Yeah, the week of, yeah.
Yeah, so 7 or 8 kilos on antibiotics, and that's not an easy task to do when you're cutting weight. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to have your gut's going to feel all funny. Fatigue's going to set in a lot more. Um, and before I go into the effects that antibiotics have on tendons, it's actually there's actual literature behind it to support the fact that it does rupture tendons. And I did a podcast with Jake Turra, who's a tendon specialist. He's based in the States, and we spoke about all things tendons on one of my episodes. And we spoke about antibiotics. We spoke about bursitis sorry, tendonitis. Does it lead to ruptures and things like that? You had all the signs going
Mhm.
into that fight that there's a high possibility of a tricep tendon tear.
Yeah, yeah, and I've gone into fights feeling almost equally as messed up, but definitely not on that much medication. Like that was like not only the medication, but I had to be kind of like I couldn't really use that arm while it was infected, you know? So
Mm,
like and then having to like really like do some really roundabout end of camp fucked up version of, what it is that I thought would prepare me for because I couldn't really use the arm very good. The week of the fight, it felt great. Like going into the fight, everything felt fine. Like no complaints, no nothing. But yeah, the reaction afterwards kind of sucked because in my head, I was like, oh, I did great. Like Font gets up against people and I held him down. And then, in my head,
mm,
I'm kind of like, I didn't really realize how boring it was until I watched it. And I'll fully admit that it was boring. Like that's an objectively true thing. But I mean, when you take into account the other things, you can't hate me that bad. Um, but yeah, just the amount of flack from that was pretty not super fun to deal with, especially because it feels like I went far beyond what maybe a normal person would have done in order to make it to a fight. Like that kind of sucked. I kind of got over it though, like after a lot of the emotions kind of settled down or whatever. In my head, it was like, okay, well, what was the alternative, Corey? And the alternative
yeah.
was to stand and make it an exciting fight, which potentially definitely wouldn't have been that one-sided if I would have done that. Font's a really, really good fighter as well, too. So it's not like I was fighting some scrub who I could easily beat with just a left hand.
Mm,
Or I continue to use my right arm, and that like kind of crossed my mind a little bit when the booze started picking up. I was like, maybe I should just use this thing. But then in my head, I'm like, I'm not about to lose this fight because I decided that I'm gonna use an arm that is trashed and then potentially mess it up. Like it was more about me not wanting to screw it up any more than however screwed up it already felt. And then yeah, so yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's tough because this sport is where sports and entertainment meet, and
hmm
and it can just put a lot of pressures on you that are outside of what actual just being good at fighting is, and
hmm
that can be, challenging to deal with sometimes. But most all of the rest of my fights, I'm not really worried about that being the case because like you said, I do fight really exciting if I'm not, dealing with a big injury.
But that's like it would be a different story, Corey, if you were like, say you were perfectly healthy and that was a situation, which would probably never happen, right?
Mhm.
Then that would be a different story. Like fair enough, people are pissed off, but having now that people know that you were fighting with one arm potentially with a tricep tendon tear, you're not going to risk, you know, a concussion just to please the audience and perhaps shorten the life of your career by standing and banging with one arm. Like it
Well,
just doesn't.
it was kind of nice watching people switch up their tone once they did find out that it was like full terror. Like that was probably the most fun part about it is I was like, see, I told you guys it was
Yeah,
one.
mother, yeah, I know. And that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't know. Like, obviously, I'm not in your position, but to actually to deal with that, to be put into the spotlight, like we're not. You're not like well, you are a celebrity to some degree as a sporting star in the UFC, and it comes with a lot of pressure and it comes with a lot of responsibility. And you're judged on your last performance. Everybody's judged on their last performance, and everyone's quick to forget what you've done in the lead up to that. And the amount of pressure that someone would feel from dealing with that flack is, I would love to know, what are some of your coping mechanisms like?
Yeah, that's another really good question. Yeah, man. So being like a semi-famous dude in a very small world is a very strange thing for a guy like me because I don't like compromising my personality in order to make myself be more entertaining or me be seen in a certain light that people want me to be, so that's a challenging piece for me just because I just by my nature, like third person objectively saying this, like I'm a very genuine person and I'm very honest and I'm very like normal, and it's been like a little bit of a difficult challenge trying to navigate a lot of you know the part of my career that I'm in, but I'm getting pretty good at dealing with it. I'm getting pretty good at being really comfortable with who it is that I am and not feeling like I need to fall into some weird mold that other people have had success in, because like I said, man, like the long-term way of viewing things is, like people like consistent people like things that
Mm,
are sometimes different. As long as I put out really badass fights, like if you think about like Alex Volkanovski or other people that maybe don't have that like star power or didn't have that star power coming up, and then you watch how loved they are by a lot of people, and it's like, oh, like I could do that just by being myself too, man. So I trust that, I like me.
mhm.
I might not be, like the dopamine hit that I think a lot of people get from their phones, but I think that I have a lot of interesting and, well thought out ideas about fighting and about life that, I would want to listen to. So I'm just comfortable with that now. It's still a struggle a little bit, but I also have really good role models to sometimes talk to too. Like Justin Gaethje is at the gym all the time,
Oh,
and
nice.
Gaethje and I have been training in the same room. We're not the closest of buddies in the world, but we've been training in the same rooms for like, I don't know, 13 years now or so.
Wow.
So, I can kind of talk to Gaethje, and I've kind of been able to watch Gaethje go through because Gaethje's actually famous, So Gaethje, I've been able to watch how he's handled himself, and Gaethje hasn't changed a bit. Like he's remained being himself. If anything, I think he's become more and more of himself, which is something that I've seen him do that I'm just trying to emulate in my own way. And he's just been like a really awesome person for me to kind of, just observe go through all of the chaos that being a famous person can be.
That's good. That's nice, man. Fucking Gaethje's a hard ass too.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a, he
He's
loves a good scrap, man. So, like with your YouTube channel now, I find that really helpful with the striking tips that you're doing. Just to give everyone a bit of an insight to what you're doing on that page. When did you actually start it? Like giving out these instructionals?
Yeah, so I started. So the instructionals were an idea that Ryan Hall kind of gave to me because he does super good on instructionals. Like his instructionals are phenomenal. He helps a lot of people. He does well for himself doing those instructionals. He has fun with it. He's the absolute king of instructionals as far as jujitsu goes. So I was like, like Ryan's a smart guy. Me and him are, fairly similar. Let me try to maybe do some of the things that Ryan does. So I put out some instructionals on what I thought were very important things in striking, specifically for MMA, but you could definitely tailor it towards kickboxing or Muay Thai as well, because I did have a pretty extensive career in that as well. So, I put those out, and then I started the YouTube channel just to kind of uh, like promote those a little bit. and then I started having fun doing the YouTube stuff. So now I do a lot of like weekly breakdowns, which has been a lot of fun for me too. YouTube is actually a lot more fun than what I thought it'd be. It's yeah, it's kind of given me like a little bit of more new life as far as social media goes than Instagram, because Instagram feels like a big old highlight reel, and YouTube feels like I can be educational and I
Mm,
can be funny in a longer format, and
yes.
that feels way more genuine, and that feels like I can actually get my ideas across, because if you haven't noticed from this podcast, I can be quite long-winded when I answer a lot of questions. So yeah, I've been enjoying YouTube a lot.
That's like I speak to a lot of S&C coaches in the industries and in the industry and physios, and that's the thing where you offer real value is in longer form of content, and that's something I hope to jump on YouTube and put it out. It's just very hard to do with everything at the moment now. Do you have anyone that like kind of helps you with the filming, or do you just do it all yourself?
No, so I have my little buddy Elias. I call him my little buddy. He's my training partner, like one of my main training partners, but he's much younger than me. He's a 21-year-old kid, but very talented. Sky is the limit for that kid. So, and he's the only one really that's at the gym as much as I am. So me and him kind of, made a friendship. He's really good. He loves the sport, I think, just as much as I do. So we train a lot together, all of that. So, 21 years old, not a professional yet, trying to figure out how to make some money. So I just pay him to do it, and then that way he gets to make, a good chunk of cash every month, and I get to not have to stress about how to work the computer.
Good on you, man. That's nice. You're helping him out, and you're probably like a mentor to him in the MMA scene.
Yeah, he's cool, man, because if I could offer any piece of advice to any of the, people that have aspirations in fighting MMA, like make a best friend at the gym and be there all the time together and drill all the time. That has like I've been at the gym for like 13 or 14 years now, so I've gone through a lot of training partners, like I've seen people come, I've seen people go, I've helped a lot of people, they've helped me on the way or whatever. And
Yeah.
I've had, like every single period of my 14 years that I've been doing this, I've always had one or two people that I'm drilling with all the time. And right now, that person is Elias. It has been for, the best, like maybe 1 or 2 years now, because it's nice when you have someone that's young, they don't have any responsibilities at all. So it's as easy as being like, hey, man, like,
Let's train.
let's drill during this time, and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I got literally nothing to do right now. Uh, so find someone that doesn't have any responsibilities, and offer. I of course offer a significant help to his skill development also, but he
He
I'll go as
helps you
far
too.
as, yeah, he helps me tremendously too. It's a very two-way street.
Good. Shout out to Elias. Oh man, so look, I'm definitely keen on putting some longer form of content together. I just wanted to see if you did it all yourself, and it's the whole technical side of things that I really struggle with. But that's a really good point. I went away to Melbourne for a couple of days, like which is further south here in Australia, and I caught up with some like-minded coaches, and they're a lot younger than I am. They have a lot more time on their hands than I do. And
Mm.
they trained, we did a track session. We did some max acceleration stuff with some weighted sled sprinting and stuff like that. And it was great to do. And I couldn't keep up. I was just too old and my Achilles was blowing out. So just watching these guys push each other, even though it's not MMA, but holding each other accountable, and they're in the same industry, it's you can just see the growth as coaches and as athletes as well, what they're putting their bodies through, and having that support network and just a trade off. And same thing here in like Queensland. The MMA scene and the freestyle wrestling scene and the boxing scene, it's not as popular in Sydney, and like you said, what makes it are the training partners, the people that you get to actually spend time with and drill with, And if you don't have spazzy people and people who are more experienced and actually care, you can get some good training in. And I think that that's what really makes a difference, is having multiple bodies in there, and people that you can actually just move around with, that are really going to make you a better athlete and competitor. It's not always it's kind of a mix of both. The coaching sets the tone and the standard of skill set, and then it's the partners that kind of bring it all together.
Yeah, definitely. Getting better is very momentum based. Um, like if I'm drilling almost every single day, I think the only day, actually, I think it's almost every single day in some format. If I'm drilling every single day, the amount of things that I can learn in a month is a lot. Like it's insane. Um, Whereas if I'm like, if like, so for a really long period there, my elbow was kind of fucked up. Elias was a little bit hurt during the camp that I had with Font. So I'm kind of just now getting back into having a drilling partner that we can go over the exact same things day by day by day, correct them, problems, like problem shoot them and make them better, give up on certain things, create new things, all the entire creative process. It's way easier if you get after it every single day instead of taking long stints in between. um and it's also nice, kind of like how you were saying, where you almost have these people that are like-minded, that are doing the exact same things as you essentially, but you can bounce off way more ideas and try way more ideas if you have experimental partners to do them with. And I found that that's like a really helpful way to just accelerate learning like through the roof.
So, Corey, right now with your training, are you like, I look at you and I think, okay, he's got a wealth of experience in fighting. Are you just sharpening your craft, or are you constantly trying to learn new things? And I think this is really important to the audience that are going to listen to this, because this is another golden nugget. So, with 14 years experience in the game, are you still drilling? Are you doing specific rounds where you're working on specific things that are new to you that you've just learned, and you're drilling them, and then you're turning them into live rounds with reactions from different people? Because I always think, like, you know, what more could we teach Corey at 14 years of experience in the game? He's seen it all. Are we just refining and getting you more athletic and just better at specific qualities of MMA, such as freestyle wrestling, BJJ, striking? Or are you just actually learning new skills as well as improving the underlying physical qualities?
Yeah, I'm learning and creating a lot of new things still. So I think that the sport of, martial arts just in general, I think that in the beginning phases, like you're a beginner, you have to learn the movements and you have to learn the technical things. You have to learn like the quote unquote moves of things. Like you have to know how to do an armbar, you have to know how to escape an armbar, you have to know like certain specific passes, like you have to know these very specific moves. Once you get a little bit further down and then you learn more advanced moves, more advanced moves, more advanced moves. And then you get to a point where everything is a conceptual idea and you can act out whatever type of techniques or quote unquote moves that you want to act out, as long as they fit into the concepts that are, the rules or the laws of the thing that you're doing. So in wrestling, it's like, okay, I have this, I know like my 3 single leg takedowns or whatever. Once you get so good at doing something, you can be like, okay, what I'm actually looking for in wrestling is I'm looking for a really good attachment. I'm looking to knock this person a little bit off of balance. And then eventually I'm trying to make it so that they fall over by creating some like massive amount of leverage, hopefully. So once you start to get into the very conceptual phase, you stop thinking about moves, you stop thinking about the sport as a bunch of moves, in sequence, like you don't think about combinations like jab cross hook. You think about, where am I putting my head in accordance to this person, and now what can I hit this person with in that way. So for me, learning right now in the phase that I'm in, because I have learned a lot and I'm experienced and I'm very good now, I am almost all conceptual, which means there are still moves and things that I'm working on inside of my concepts, but they're way more advanced and nuanced than just like what you would learn in a beginner class or an intermediate class or even an advanced class, to where I'm able to be like, oh, this fits into my conceptual understanding and the laws of martial arts that I understand best. And now I'm going to try it in sparring, troubleshoot it, see if it works. If it does work, keep it. If it doesn't work, or it's a pain in the ass, or it's going to take, like 6 years to get really phenomenal at it, then I throw it in the garbage. And that's pretty much a lot of my learning now. Is it's super conceptual. If I do learn any moves, I'll learn the move. I'll try to do it like where it fits for me. And then that's like a whole nother separate learning process. Like there's learning the actual movement and the move and doing it correctly in your body. And then there's the learning how to do it within your own game. And I think that learning the moves inside the concepts that fit, and then being able to fit it inside of your own unique style of game that you have, is kind of the point that I'm at right now. So I'm definitely still working on stuff, but it's maybe not in the same way that other people are working on things.
Wow, that's amazing. So just to recap, so you're a new fighter. You obviously want to develop the fundamentals, the basic key principles, building a solid base, well-rounded base of all the skill sets and arts within MMA. Once you start building a solid foundation and you can express that skill set and those fundamentals to a higher level where it becomes subconscious, that's when you start looking above. Like I look at these BJJ guys and they're like wizards. They're like figuring out all these new little nuances within the game. But then I remember doing a seminar with John Danaher, and he's like, I'm going to teach you things that work 80% of the time as opposed to 20% of the time, just
Mm.
with basic fundamentals of grappling in that sense. Do you focus on, and you made a good point, you said if something's going to take you 6 years to master, you're just going to scrap it in the bin and just go, fuck this, I don't have 6 years to refine this skill. Um, when you're actually, when you find something that works, do you, obviously the way that you incorporate this new skill set or this new move or new bit of technique that you're trying to implement into your game, it's the same way that you would probably build the fundamentals, the same kind of principles in that sense of do it slow, drill it. Once you've drilled it, let's add a little bit of reactivity to it with an opponent, then start doing it with lower level guys, and then start doing it in sparring with higher level guys. Is it
Yes.
that kind of same system and routine?
Yes, that's how I would suggest it for most people. I can kind of skip some steps just because, like a lot of fighting people are not super aware and present of what it is that they're doing, and but that's not because of any other reason other than the fact that there's just a lot of shit going on, and it's very hard to understand what's happening in every single sequence. I am kind of at the point where I do have I know what's going on when I'm fighting at all times. I'm never like, oh, how did I end up over here? Or, oh, why did I throw that cross? Like, that's never happening to me. I'm
Yeah,
never like, oh, I just whiffed really big. Like, why did that just happen? That doesn't happen to me often anymore just because I am, like I've been doing it for a really long time. So I have established the ability to, like be super aware and intentional about every single thing that I'm doing. So, yes, I would suggest that when you are getting better at fighting, you have to get good at the move. And that typically means just repping whatever move that is out, like rep it over and over again in a scenario where there is no resistance. And then after you start to do that, I would bring it into, like it's maybe not quite the experimental phase, but one step before the experimental phase where I'm doing it with a partner who's giving me about 30% resistance. I figure out how to make it work, not in a perfect scenario, but also not in a really real life scenario either. After I've done my 30% drilling, which, maybe lasts, that's probably the longest portion, I would say, of the learning, is like the 30% trying to
mm,
figure out how this thing works with a little bit of resistance. you take it into your like semi-live training, or even, maybe not like you're killing each other live training, but your semi-live training where you're both trying to get better and working on things, and you don't have to worry about getting knocked the fuck out for trying something new. So you take it into that phase. That's more of a quicker phase because you've already kind of like troubleshooted the thing a lot in the 30% phase. You take this thing into the sparring phase or the semi sparring phase. You try it out. You decide whether you like it, you don't like it. You like it in certain circumstances. You don't like it in other circumstances. You like it in different situations depending on how the fight is playing out, whether it's a really high risk maneuver or if it's low risk maneuver. If it's more point based or, like hitting and actually hurting someone based, you figure all of that out in the sparring. And then, like I said, or I actually didn't say this, but you take that move to the point of its very dead end, to where this thing is not going to work anymore, like without question. So what I mean is, if arm bars worked in every single situation, there would be no other reason to learn any other submission than an arm bar. When you're learning arm bars, you learn arm bars, you hit a couple arm bars, you're like, sweet, this is great. And then you start to run into like, oh, okay, I'm trying to arm bar this guy. He pulls his arm out. There's no other arm bar available. Now what I should do is try to triangle the guy. And then so you start to understand that, okay, so this thing is finite. It's not this infinite move. It's not a one punch move where I could just kill everyone by doing this one move. You take it to its finite point, and then you decide where that point is, and then you incorporate that piece into your game, and you don't try to go past that finite because you've discovered where the edge of the cliff is, and you don't need to really play with that anymore because that's what's going to get you hurt and not progressing.
That's amazing concept. That's fantastic because it's kind of similar to like what we would do in strength and conditioning. It's like, how far can I milk this certain concept or movement or exercise before it falls off a cliff and potentially has negative transfer to this athlete's game? And it's those principles in terms of thought processes, they go far beyond outside of just training. They're in life. You're probably doing it in other parts of your life as well. But just that last sentence that you gave about the armbar, where you take it to its, and you're trying to figure out the boundary and how far you can take that. That definitely is something I've never heard of before, and I think a lot of fighters should, pretty much take a lot of golden nuggets out of what you've just said, because that is a lot of value in that sentence, I think.
When I'm practicing something new, so for example, I just got done training with Ton Lee last week or 2 weeks ago or whenever it is, and he taught me some really awesome badass shit. And so when I'm trying to learn something new, um, I'll like run that thing into the ground. Like I will look dumb as hell trying to get really, really good at that one thing just to find where that end point is.
Hmm.
And that's actual understanding. That's not informational understanding. That's not, I do this in some circumstances and don't know why I'm doing it. It's like actual deep understanding. And I think that learning applies across all arts and across all sciences and across anything that you're doing. If you can excel at learning better than other people, that's the key. You know what I mean? Like that's the key to figuring out how to be the best at what you're doing, is figure out how to learn faster than every single other person.
And there's a lot of things that contribute to that. And this is where I speak from personal experience, but then working with you, someone who's highly, like, the best athletes in the world are the best movers in the world. They know
Mm.
how to, they're not the strongest in the gym. They're not the most powerful or athletic in the gym based on numbers, but they know how to express rhythm. They know how to express force at the right time, right? And these are the guys that move the best. They're elegant to watch. And when you give a guy like who's extremely athletic a skill to learn or a new skill, and is very intelligent, and they can position their body to be able to express that new skill that they're trying to learn and be able to get in the right positions, they're going to pick it up much faster than someone who has some sort of inhibition or limitation that comes from inability to achieve a certain position from a lack of athletic qualities. And that's where I think strength and conditioning does play a big part to some degree in performance. If, let's say, you're learning, I'll give you a perfect example. We when I was doing freestyle wrestling in Sydney, we had some high level guys there, some European champions from Russia and stuff like that come through, and there was this athletically gifted guy there. He looked like a fucking Greek goddess, and he'd been only wrestling for 3 years, and the guy could do full middle splits, just no steroids, nothing, just an actual, just a guy that was very gifted in all forms of athleticism, mobility, strength, power. He had it all. Any skill, any new skill that was shown on the day or something he wanted to learn more about, you'd show him once or twice and he was doing it in sparring, and he was able to execute the new skill that he'd just been shown. Someone like who's not as athletically gifted, doesn't present those qualities. You show them that skill, they can't get into the position. They can't achieve or produce force in this vulnerable position because their body just doesn't have that option to do that. And that's where the learning capabilities are slowed down quite a lot with people that want to progress within that sport. If we can give you more options to be able to express your skill set at a higher level and take on more skills, you're going to learn the sport, or you're going to perhaps enhance your game a lot faster than other people.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think I mean that's what I turned to SNC for, like I think that it takes no one can be the best at everything, and it takes a phenomenal coach in the gym to look at someone and be like, oh, that person is missing this athletic quality. Like that's a very hard thing for someone who's a martial arts coach who wants to teach moves and concepts and things like that. But I don't know how many times I've run into really good wrestlers who, when you throw a punch at them, their reaction is that, and that's like that coordination is its own athletic skill, just like how being strong is, and correct me if I'm wrong at any time, but just like how being strong is its own athletic skill. Like there are so many facets to being a good athlete, learning and how to, and like having the amount of mirror neurons in your brain so you can replicate a move in an instant is an athletic skill or a talent or whatever. There's so many of them that I can't even think of, but yeah, I mean that's what I turn to strength and conditioning to also, is because I think that that's like that's something that's off the radar of a lot of MMA coaches, is it's like because they just don't have an eye for it, because no one can have an eye for everything.
That's correct. And
Mhm.
that's, it's extremely hard to do it all. And what you said was correct. Strength is a skill. And me, obviously us working together, me teaching you hinging, how to hinge, how to squat, taking you through some basic principles, that is a skill within itself. And it's that skill is not trying to replicate your sport whatsoever. What
Mhm.
we're trying to do is build and raise the floor of these underlying physical qualities, such as, like you said, strength, power, endurance, rate of force development, just to make you more physically robust so that you can express your skills at a higher level, right?
Mhm.
And it's just a vessel to get you, as one part of being a great athlete is this individual physically robust? Can he withstand? Is he as strong as his competitors? Right?
Mhm.
Is if he gets into a wrestling exchange where he has to defend a single leg or a double leg, is he strong enough to sprawl and push his hips back? Is he, can he hand fight? Can he control this? Does he have those physically robust qualities? And that
Mhm.
is kind of where S&C can give you the little edge on top of that. Um, and don't get me wrong, there's guys out there that do zero S&C and are
Mhm.
absolute specimens, but you're going to reach a threshold. You're going to reach a certain limit where you've maximized, like, well, like probably what's stopping these high level athletes is maybe they need to just get more physically well rounded so that their game and technical side improves, and it just keeps going in this kind of trajectory where um, someone is really technically gifted versus someone who's really athletically dominant. Let's say their technical skill sets are matched, and let's say someone is more physically robust and well rounded, they're probably going to have more of an edge over someone who has a less athletic base, but their technical abilities are very similar.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think yeah, I think that the beauty is in the details, and the more advantages you can stack up against your opponent, even if they're the most minimal, minuscule advantages possible, those things go a really, really long way when you're thinking long-term statistics.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Corey, this is probably the longest podcast I've had. It's been a pleasure, man, having you on. Just before we wrap things up, obviously everyone knows where you are on social media. Do you have anything exciting coming up that you just want to tell the audience or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I just released one of my most recent instructionals on mental performance that I did like a duo with my sports performance coach for the last 6 years. So that's on sale for at Corey Sandhagen MMA.com. And then I also last week just shot a footwork one, which I know a lot of people have been asking about. So that'll probably be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, just I guess look out for those two things.
Yeah, I'll pop those links underneath the description. So anyone who's listening to this episode, I'll pop Corey's links under those videos that he's mentioned, those instructionals. And mate, thank you for giving up your time. And I look forward to heading over to the States soon to spend some time with
Yeah, no problem, Steve. You're a really good podcaster, actually, dude.
you.
You're not a bad communicator the way you tried to sell yourself to me that the
Mate,
other day.
mate, I'm pretty nervous, eh?
Yeah, dude, that was really good. You should see some of the podcasts I've done.
Oh wow. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Guys, if you're listening to this episode, please give us a 5-star rating, share it on your socials, and yeah, I look forward to the next one.
Cool. All right, later, brother.